I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes from the April 14th, 2021 meeting. Everyone had a chance to review those minutes? Any corrections to be noted? You have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
I'd second that motion.
Sounded like motion by Aaron, second by Jim. To approve the minutes from April 14th, 2021. Any other questions or corrections on the minutes? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're going to shuffle the agenda a little bit tonight for some public comment. Ed, do you want to handle that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We would like to do we have someone in the audience that wants to make a public comment. If you could please come to the podium and identify yourself, we'll do the public comment now.
My name is Mike Napier. I'm the owner of a company called Biochem that has done business with the Lebanon Utility for many, many years, and I'm here to address the bid process and some concerns with that on the polymers for the wastewater system. My background real quick is I'm the owner of Biochem, and I currently do business with 166 cities personally in Indiana. I do about 90% of all the polymer business in the state of Indiana in the municipal wastewater market. So I have a pretty good understanding of the products and their uses. Yes, excuse me, I'm not a public speaker, but a year ago, the decision was made to bid polymers. When I received the bid, I contacted Ryan and asked him how the bid was going to be awarded. Did they want a dispersion, an emulsion?
Let me interrupt real quick.
Sure.
Mr. Napier, if you could speak into the microphone.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That would be,
Okay.
that's necessary. Thank you.
Anyway, long story short, can I pull this down?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So when I received the bid, I'd been doing the polymer business with Lebanon for many, many years. As I said, I do 90% of it in the state. At that point, I decided to come up and talk with Ryan, and we discussed how the bid was going to be awarded. In the state of Indiana, only 3 cities bid polymers. And even in order to bid, you have to meet minimum requirements on cake dryness, percent solids, and it comes down to the pound of dry ton of solids that you process with 1 pound of polymer. So I asked Ryan how y'all are going to award the bid, what was it going to be based on. You know, I have polymers that are $1.88 a pound, I have polymers that are 50 cents a pound. It comes down to how well they work and the overall cost to run that product. So my question was, do I bid the 80 cents a pound? Because that would be the only thing I saw that it could be awarded on is the price. There were no requirements, there were no tests done, nothing. So after last year, I think, it was decided that it wasn't a good idea to bid polymers. At the same time, y'all are going to bid chemistry for removal of copper in the wastewater system. I work, like I said, with 166 cities. You were currently, at that time, spending $180,000 a year trying to remove copper from your wastewater system. So I told them I was going to bid water because nothing will remove copper from a biological wastewater treatment plant, nothing. And y'all had spent well over $1 million trying to do that. That was also decided not to be bid. In the meantime, I've been working with Tony and Ron for the several months before that, working on getting that removed from your permit. We had contacted several of my clients that have been able to do that. So in savings from last year and this year, you'll probably save about $300,000. As of a month or 2 ago, with my help, that's been removed from your permit, saving the utility over the course of many years, millions of dollars. So this year, I get a phone call from Wisconsin from a guy telling me that y'all were bidding again. I called the wastewater guys, they didn't know anything about it. I called Ryan, he didn't answer. He called me back the day that they were due. I talked to Mr. Jacobs concerning how y'all were going to award it again. No tests had been done, nothing had been done from the previous year to this year, nothing. So there was nothing to base the results on. Again, it had to come down to price. So I think, if I'm not wrong, that talked to Mr. Jacobs 3 times. I think the engineers had told y'all that it had to be bid. It doesn't have to be bid. Well, I'm trying to think. So I'm assuming 3 different times it was rewritten. I'm assuming the engineering company charged for that services. I don't know about how the law is. But anyway, I think y'all spent a lot of money trying to fix the correction. As of the last meeting, I think you decided to go ahead and award to the only bidder at a price of $2.47 a pound. Y'all are paying $1.88 a pound for me. That means this utility will spend $1,351 every container every time you buy one. So you spent, in my opinion, hundreds if not thousands of dollars getting these bids reworked. You're going to spend another probably $30,000 on the polymers, and you're going to use up more product. If you talk to the guys at a wastewater plant or any wastewater plant in this state, they will tell you there's a big difference in the quality of the product that I sell and what you've got. You will use 20% more. You will pay $1,400 more per tote, and you spent money getting it reworked with the engineering and all that. My point is, I think it was a bad decision. I think the ratepayers of Lebanon should be concerned that you're going to spend additional money on a product that's not as good, that you've never ran, you know nothing about the company. And I don't know, it may be too late to fix it. I know that I won't get the business, but what I'm telling you, I sell what this city buys, $35,000 in polymer. I sell that every day, at least that much. So it came down not to money and business, it came down to what's right. I'm 63 years old, been doing this 43 years, and I have never seen anything handled so improperly, in my opinion. How the bid was awarded without knowing what you were paying last year, that you're paying a lot less last year than you will this year, and you spent money getting the bid reworked, to me, I just really, excuse me, but pissed me off. I guess my question is, who wanted this? Did the ratepayers win? You know, was it a good decision? You're paying, like I said, $2.47 a pound versus $1.88. So I guess I wasn't going to come. I've never done anything like this before. But, you know, I hope bigger decisions were thought out a little bit better. Do you all have any questions for me? I mean, does it make sense that you're paying more this year? Sure.
Well, let me just interject, Mr. Napier, and I talked to Mr. Stoner earlier, who's on Zoom, but typically you may not get a response today if there's any questions, but this isn't really. But I understand that. Like I said, I don't know anything about this. Well, let me just finish real quick. So it's not really a dialogue. So if board members have questions, great. If not,
please.
Thanks for your comments.
I would love if anybody had any questions to call me. What I can tell you, I do business with 106 cities, and everyone will tell you my best interest is your best interest. I could have sold you a cheaper product for copper removal, but I didn't. I got it off your permit. I don't know what an engineering company would have cost to do that. I'm sure they would have billed you. I billed this utility nothing. So that's what you get when you deal with a good company that's doing what's best for your customer. Thank y'all, okay? I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry that I felt like I needed to be here.
Okay, thank you guys. Not being on site, I didn't hear all the gentlemen's comments, but appreciate him making his remarks. Jeff, do you have anything further right now on the public comment?
You know, just on that item, Board, you know, the issue is that this is, whether you view this, the polymer as a commodity or as a proprietary product. And what Ryan did is came to me and said, hey, how do we work this process for this bid? We withdrew it, hearing some of those concerns, and reworked it. We reached out to Bob Holden, who happens to be here this evening, and asked him to put a spec together for us as the guy that sort of designed the system. And so I don't think this is unique to all utilities. I think Citizens does it this way. So we were satisfied with the process. We may evolve and learn in the future. Ryan, I don't want to speak for you on this, but we may handle it differently in the future as we get to know this new component to the wastewater department. So my 2 cents, having been sort of intimately involved with Mr. Napier, who did not submit a bid. Just, I think you asked the question. He did not submit a bid on the last round. So.
My understanding was we identified a polymer that would specifically work in our situation, and that then we asked for bids on that specific polymer. Is that basically correct?
Yes.
In other words, it wasn't a commodity as such that we...
Well, I'm busy.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, that's correct. So what we did is we reached out to Mr. Holden and had him write up a spec that would ensure the process isn't apples to apples. So we didn't get an 80-cent polymer that is completely different than a $5 polymer and then say, well, the 80-cent polymer is cheaper, so let's go with that, not knowing that we're going to use 200 times more and end up actually costing the company more money. So that's, if you'll remember when we did the chemical biz the first time, we did not have that spec, so we withdrew the polymer, reached out to Mr. Holden in order for him to improve that spec and to ensure an apples to apples. And that's why we did that.
Is it accurate that a limited number of polymers would work best with our system?
Yeah, and if Mr. Holden would want to come up here and he could speak on that a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, there are different polymers that would work and not work as well.
That is correct, Aaron. The system has been optimized around Mr. Napier's polymer. Okay, he has provided the polymer for a long time. In developing the spec, we did a couple different things. Number one, we set some minimum criteria, all right, that approached Mr. Napier's polymer. So that was kind of the basis of the bidding process. We also normalized the process so that any pricing that you got was on a dollars per active basis, which in the polymer world, that's what dictates the efficiency of the polymer, okay? So we tried to bring it back to an apples and apples comparison. We also put in there caveats that if you submitted a bid with a different type of product, that you had to come to Lebanon and prove that that product would work on your nickel before Lebanon would accept the bid. So all of that was set up to get you an apples and apples basis and to give you a product that if somebody else submitted a bid at a lower price, that you knew that that product was going to work in your system.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ryan, one more thing. I guess he mentioned, didn't we employ a company called Ramble to get that copper off of our permit?
Yes.
Did I get their name right?
Mr. Napier did, on the copper, he did suggest reaching out to the city of Danville and seeing what they did. And what they did is they had Ramble come in, and they were Danville was the first ones that we knew of. IDEM actually rewrote some of their standards because of this, because the receiving stream was different when the permit was issued as compared to what the receiving receiving stream is currently. So we went to Danville. That was one of my first projects upon assuming this role. And then Ramble, we went to IDEM meetings with Ramble, and they were able to help us with that. So he did suggest us going through Danville, but Ramble's the one who did all the permitting through IDEM and really was because they had already done it and they had already invented the wheel. So we didn't see the need to reinvent the wheel. So that's kind of how the copper elimination, or it didn't get eliminated, but it was raised to an appropriate amount for our permit.
It's still included in our permit, right?
It is, but it's a more realistic number, and it helps us to be in compliance based on the receiving stream, the current receiving stream, and so compliance should not be an issue based on what we have right now because of the new permit.
Thanks.
And I do want to thank BFNS and Wessler Engineering. They were great help when we had questions and concerns. Bob right away said, yeah, we've done this before. It's not anything crazy. We can do that for you. And then BFNS did hold the virtual bid opening and that process for us as I was out of town. So I do want to thank them for their fast reaction in helping us with that.
One reason I precipitated this discussion, I just know that we as a board considered this carefully and read it. I read all the documentation from BFNS and Wessler, and I feel like I and we made a reasoned decision that I stand by.
I don't know if Neil heard that.
Neil?
Yeah, I couldn't hear all the comments again, but just let me know when we're ready to move to the next item or if we need any other.
Yep, we're ready for the next item, the Alpha Engineering one.
I think if you guys get closer to the mic, we might be able to hear better.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the mic at the podium is working. I'm just saying that because I'll make sure Matt can check into it, because I'm not hearing people through it, so.
Yeah, I couldn't hear any of it. Hey, Ed, do we have any more public comments?
Can you hear me?
While we're here?
Pull it closer to you.
Oh, it's okay, it's just not close enough. Yeah, that was all the public comment, Mr. Chairman. I just, ready for the next item, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move to item 4 on the agenda, which is the Alpha Engineering Master Service Agreement action item. And who's covering that tonight?
That'll be Jeff Greeno, he's at the podium.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I have one item for the board this evening, the Master Engineering Service Agreement with Alpha Engineering. Alpha Engineering will be doing all the electrical services that are spelled out in this agreement. Each individual project will have a sample work order and a not-to-exceed amount with it. So I would like to ask the board to approve the Master Engineering Services Agreement with Alpha Engineering for the fiscal year of 2021, with all documents to be signed by General Manager Ed Baskell. Does anyone have any questions?
And if there's a work order, an individual work order that's over $15,000, it'll come here for approval?
It'll come to the board, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Neil and Bill, did you hear that?
Yeah, no, Jeff, you finished, right?
So we're looking for a motion.
All right, anybody have any questions for Jeff on this service agreement before we entertain motion?
I move to approve the Master Engineering Services Agreement with Alpha Engineering for the fiscal year of 2021, with all documents to be signed by, by Ed.
I second that motion.
All right, I would I think I heard a motion by Kim and maybe a second by Jim
Yes.
to approve the Master Engineering Service Agreement with Alpha Engineering for fiscal year 2021 with documents to be signed by General Manager Ed Baskell. Anyone else have any questions for Jeff or discussion on this item? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Just one question, and this is, I think, a board question, is we're in May of 2021, and we're just approving a contract services agreement for the year. Shouldn't these be coming at the end of the year?
So good question. So Alpha, this is a new agreement for them, and they have not used master services agreement. These will, what we're trying to do is get on a staggered cycle so that we don't have, yes, to answer your question, it should have been earlier in the year, but we're trying to get on staggered cycle of varying contracts. So
Okay.
I would prefer these to, in the future, to be a 12-month, not annual contract, but that's something that we can address as we get rolling with these.
Right.
From an efficiency standpoint.
Put me on next item.
All right, anything else before we jump to the next item?
No, I think we're ready for the next item.
Okay, next item is the Noble Street property demolition, and it's an action item as well.
Yeah, and Ryan's at the podium.
All right, hey Ryan.
Hello. This item is part of the land swap agreement that we reached with the Parks Department in the City of Lebanon for the Abner Longley water storage. And as part of the agreement, Lebanon Utilities would be responsible for removal of the house, and I believe it's a garage or a second structure on that area. And so we did send that out for quotes, and we received 2 quotes. It was properly advertised. We received 2 quotes. One was from Denny Excavation for $28,500, and the other was from Ray's Demolition, and it was for $27,500. And so I would like to request that we accept the low bid from Ray's for $27,500. That includes all of the asbestos testing and everything that goes along with it, removal of the structures, and then properly kind of grading it back and doing some seeding afterwards, so the park has a clean slate to work with upon removal. And if anybody has any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer those.
So Ryan, if we find asbestos, is asbestos removal included, or would that be come as a separate abatement included?
It is included.
Okay.
Any kind of issues that come up with that is included in that, and that's kind of why we went with BF&S to help us with this, because I've never done a demolition. This house is early 1900s, so I wasn't sure what we would find when we get in there, so I wanted to make sure we were just kind of covered on all those fronts.
Jeff, in that regard, there'll be a contract with this, a written contract?
Yes,
that will
sir.
reflect
Yes.
what we just discussed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Ryan or discussion on this item? If not, I would entertain some motions.
I'd move to approve the award of the demolition of the structure of 501 East Noble Street to Ray's Demolition LLC and the amount of $27,500. Should that be not to exceed?
That's the amount.
Second.
All right, I heard a motion. Do we have a motion? I didn't hear who the motion was from, but I heard a second by Aaron.
It was by Jim and seconded by Aaron.
Okay. Motion made by Tim, second by Aaron to approve the demolition of the structure at 501 East Noble, awarding that to Ray's Demolition in the amount of $27,500. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ryan. Next item is also an action item. It is regarding the perimeter fence replacement for the facilities on Lafayette Avenue.
Yeah, this request is for the perimeter fencing at the facilities on Lafayette Avenue, which include our water distribution department, our sewer collections department, and our entire wastewater treatment plant, that entire facility. This perimeter fence, we actually received, and I do need to give a shout out to the crew of Ron Hallman and Vanessa Fisher. They did a great job of getting pricing on this. They called 3 companies and actually got 6 total quotes. They did the black fencing and the galvanized just to make sure that we got the best price. So all 3 fence companies gave us a price on both fences. And this is more than just a fence. This is a 6-foot chain link fence with 3 barbed wire strands on top, and is part of our security for that facility. When we were working on our hazard rankings for the upcoming wastewater CIP, we have this as the fence is ranked 18th in our hazard assessment, but would move as it deteriorates and as it causes issues, could move up every year, or could move up next year to the top 5. So the concerns are to go ahead and address it now. It does have some areas, this is the original fence, and over time, as the concrete posts have, moisture has gotten in the area, they've raised and raised and raised. There are gaps underneath the fence, and the perimeter fencing is just not as secure as we would like. We would split this between water and wastewater. It would be 2/3 for wastewater and 1/3 for water based on the facilities on the property. And so we did budget this amount. This was a line item we budgeted based on a rough estimate last year of $150,000. And fortunately, the quote came in well under that. And the quote for the fencing would be to approve K&K fence to install the fence at the facilities, and K&K this is the lowest bid. So we're going to go with that, and that includes removal. How they're going to do it is lean the current fence back, put the new fence in, so we don't ever have a gap in the fencing, as far as just removing it all and having it all wide open and then trying to hurry and get it put in. It may take a little longer, but it's going to maintain a little bit or a higher level of security during that time. So I can take any questions on that, but the bids or the quotes I am going to request is the lowest quote that we received.
Hey, Ryan, this is Bill. So you're going to replace it with black vinyl chain link, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you, Brian. Anybody have any other questions for Ryan?
I just want to be clear, I tried to do a little online research, I'm not a fence guy, but this is a metal fence with a black vinyl covering, right?
Yes, it's
Okay.
it's a chain link fence.
Right.
It's just got the black vinyl covering on it, and we in that area and with that facility, aesthetics weren't the priority. It was the security. IDEM does come in and look at this facility when they come in and inspect the wastewater treatment plant. They do notice the fence. They've made comments, but we have not been written up for that yet. But if it would continue to deteriorate, we've made many patches. The guys the crews does a great job of maintaining it, But, with a 30, 40-year-old facility, just like a fence in someone's backyard, it's time to go ahead and make the replacement. We did discuss doing it in phases, but it seemed like it made the most sense to just do it all at once.
Right, any other questions? Now I would entertain some motions.
This is Aaron. I move to approve the award for the perimeter fence replacement for the facilities on Lafayette Avenue to K&K Fence for the amount of $79,680.
Second.
A motion by Aaron, second by Ken, to approve the award for the perimeter fence replacement for the Lafayette Avenue facility to K&K Fence for an amount of $79,680. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ryan. Next item on the agenda is also an action item. It's the RFP for the Adler-Longley Water Storage Facility.
Neil, I'm sure you're used to me just continuing to stand up here item after item, so I'll go ahead and before I do make this request, I have a real short presentation on this process. This process is newer to Lebanon Utilities and to myself, so John Leitner is going to present a real short PowerPoint that just explains this alternative procurement. Is that, no, that can't be right, but that's what it felt like. I was just going to go ahead and go with that at this point. So an alternative form, how about that? And so John's going to go through that, and then I'll come back up and do a request, an approval for my request. I'll hand this over to John Leitner from BFNS.
Procurement. So, as always, I think it goes a little bit better if it's consider it less of a presentation and more of a discussion. So if anybody has any questions as I'm going along, and I'll try to make it pretty quick, but we thought it kind of important to talk about utilizing alternative procurement for the Adler-Longley Water Storage Facility. So in Indiana, we have basically 5 main ways you can deliver a project. Your tried and true, which I have there in the middle in yellow, is the design bid build. That's kind of what everybody is most comfortable with, everybody's used to. You get plans and specs together, you put them out to bid, a contractor bids them, and they build it. What I have, the ones in red are pretty complex, kind of more rarely used. I think the CM(c), construction manager as constructor, is used a little bit more often. The design build law, Jacob could probably talk about it more than I could, but it's very complex and very confusing and is rarely used, I guess, in what we've seen. When we talk about the methods in the green circles, I would consider those kind of alternative procurement to the design bid build. So guaranteed savings contracts we've used successfully in the past and are currently using, and then public-private agreements or build, operate, transfer, BOT is kind of what we're talking about today.
All right, that's the question on the RFP.
I don't believe he's done. Are you done?
Neil, he's still presenting. He's got a few more slides to go.
Okay, thanks. I just can't hear it all.
Sorry, I'll try to speak more into the mic. So I guess when should you consider using an alternative delivery method versus the standard, tried and true design bid build? When we start looking at these alternative delivery methods, we're looking at potentially a special funding consideration, a need for flexibility, a constrained and complex schedule, the need for a specialized or experienced contractor, and the need for cost certainty and some risk transfer over to the contractor. With the complexity of our Admiral Longley Water Storage Facility, the tank itself, the pumps, a lot of the chemical dosing equipment, things like that, we'd feel a lot better. I guess it's a little bit more of a comfort level when you're kind of selecting based off of qualifications and things like that, rather than taking the lowest bidder necessarily in situations like this. Kind of talking a little bit more about these alternative procurement.
So just a second, please, John.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, when I was reading through the RFP contract type documents, the term operate stood out to me. So the person who constructs this will be required to operate it until we assume ownership?
Yes, and it's kind of a nuance in the law. But
Go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be running the facility. During construction, they can be operating the facility. That we can consider an operating period. Even developing a price and getting a full construction contract, they can be operating at that time. So
But it's really not going to be connected to our water system till it's entirely completed, right?
correct, that's correct.
So
Yes.
they're actually not going to be operating part of our water system for any period of time, right?
No, sir. No, it's going to be Lebanon Utilities will be operating this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So on this, I like to show this, this graph here when we're talking about alternative procurement, because it kind of gives you a good idea. You'll see that green line is kind of your curve on value versus loss. And with these alternative procurement methods, what we're doing is getting the contractor or the developer involved earlier in the process. You kind of see traditional point of contractor involvement is right at construction. They don't really have a say in the concept or design. We can put anything on paper, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can build it. This kind of gives a contractor or developer an opportunity to weigh in and say, yeah, that bolt does fit on paper, but I can't actually get a wrench to it. If you move it back a foot, things will be a lot better, that type of thing.
So there'll be blueprints developed for this project, correct?
Correct, there will be.
Will the blueprints be a BF&S blueprint?
Correct, yes, stamped by a Butler Fairman Cipher civil engineer.
But you'll be getting input from the contractor as you develop, in essence, the specs for the project?
Correct, similar to how we've done it on guaranteed savings. So we would call that value engineering. So probably when we put these out, we're going to be at 50 or 60% completed design, and then kind of letting them give some input and things. We'll continue to work on it, and if they give no input, that happens too, but that's not, hopefully we get somebody that we're teamed up with, and it's more of a project team rather than here we gave you this, we know what, we know best, build it type of scenario.
I think, John, the question I'd have is you're looking to use somebody else's experiences in this type of work to add value to the design itself versus
Correct.
handing them a design and saying install it as is, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So maybe something, even if you did that, they might end up with a change order because it wouldn't have
Correct.
worked or things like that. But yes, the whole point is to kind of get a collaborative process going. So as we talk about kind of these alternative procurement versus design bid build, what alternative procurement can give you are qualifications-based selections, guaranteed maximum price, open book pricing, increased schedule control, and there are financing options that are available with this. What we'd like to do with BOT is make it as similar to guaranteed savings contract as possible that we're all kind of used to. I think, pretty important to Ryan and the guys to get the qualifications-based selection where you're not just getting the low bidder necessarily, you're getting the most qualified bidder. The guaranteed maximum price where we're setting the ceiling on the project and you're going to pay what the project costs. The project will cost what it costs. In the low bid, you're setting a floor and getting change ordered up.
So, but you can still have change requests under guaranteed maximum price, correct?
Correct, but they will be owner-driven change orders is how we do it. Hopefully, at the end, we have the best change.
Owner-driven change orders?
Correct. So
Rather than
Contractor driven.
rather than contractor driven. They've set a guaranteed maximum price, that's what that's the most you're gonna pay for the project unless you decide that you're paying for something additional scope.
An example of that would be if we said, hey, we want to move we have a design change, we thought about this a little bit more, we want to add another bay, or we want to upsize the pipe. We went back to the drawing board, that would be an owner-driven change order.
Yeah, with the open book pricing, Aaron, there will be some contingencies in there as well to kind of mitigate risk where if things pop up unforeseen, that we can work within that guaranteed maximum price to kind of work on that. Trying to think where I was at there. Like I was saying, more setting a ceiling rather than setting a floor and then finding out what the price is later is kind of what we're trying to avoid with there. So when we look at trying to qualify, I think Jeff Jacob asked me this question right away, is why can't we do a guaranteed savings? And that is a good question. So to qualify as a guaranteed savings per the Indiana code, a project must be a facility alteration. So that's saying an alteration to a structure, technology upgrade, provide a billable revenue increase, or reduce energy costs, water consumption costs. So really, it's more of an alteration or a rehabilitation or renovation of an existing facility is how we interpret the code. Whereas, a BOT, a public-private agreement, it includes any public building, highway, street, alley, bridge, sewer, drain, or other public facility. So you're able to build new things. One of the big distinctions, it doesn't really apply, but we're kind of in a gray area. But if you add capacity to your system, you cannot use guaranteed savings. It's been very clear on that, where a public-private agreement, if we want to go build a new water treatment plant and add more capacity, the BOT would be more useful, or the proper tool to use. So just going over real quick, and these are just the broad steps. We'll keep coming back and getting approvals as we keep moving along. But first step is having the BOT statute adopted. That was actually adopted by the city, which kind of encompasses all of us then. They're currently working on a BOT project, I believe, on a spec building, but I don't know a lot of details on that. But what we're here tonight to kind of talk about, or what Ryan's going to ask for, is to advertise the RFP to go out and get these qualifications. We're then going to use a scoring committee of some kind to select a developer. We do need to have a public hearing in there to kind of confirm everything. But that's when we'll get a BOT development agreement together, which is where we're going to select a contractor, work with them to kind of get to that guaranteed maximum price.
Public hearing, that's a little different, isn't it?
It is a little bit, yeah, it's an extra step.
What's a few of the details on that?
I mean, basically, it's an open meeting to, here's who we are going to select, and have anybody give a public comment that wants to.
So after the scoring committee selects
Correct, yeah.
a contractor, then the
Public hearing, then we'll come back to the board and
It's almost like a public bid opening and approval. So it's virtually, what you've tried to do is put that open door component into the process. So people could come in and object or say, no, they do a good job, et cetera. So,
it's in the code. We'll see if anybody attends, hopefully. So then we would get into a BOT development agreement. At that point, after we kind of develop a price, get ready, then we would switch over to a BOT construction agreement. If you recall, that we're working through the SRF loan process for this project. So that's kind of a good distinction, where basically the BOT construction agreement will start, SRF money will take over, and that's where it'll seem just like
on developer selected, the green item there, that would be subject to board approval.
Correct.
All right, would you go back to the, and then the development agreement, again, board?
Yep.
And then the construction again, board approval?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So this is kind of a new process with SRF. Bob Holden's here. Actually, Wessler, I think, has beat us to the punch in a different community to be the first SRF-funded project that's going to use a BOT agreement. So that also means we'll use them as a guinea pig a little bit too, which is not a bad thing. Sometimes going second is okay. But in certain cases. But that's kind of the nuts and the bolts, or just a high level explanation of kind of what build, operate, transfer is, and why we think it would be a good fit for this project. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Just a comment that says, in private business, this is a very, very common process that is used, where you partner with somebody who has a specific expertise in your business to get to the point of construction and then move at that point, instead of trying to do all the design work yourself or hiring BFS or Wexler or someone to do all the design work, and they may not have all the answers to do, then you just go and bid the process and say construct it as is. That's a very difficult process sometimes. And that's the recommendation. We get somebody that maybe has a little more expertise in water.
I would be interested if our CFO, Sandra Morgan, has any opinion about this.
No, I haven't been involved in the process that much, but I believe the way they're going is the best route. I haven't been in the process, I haven't been involved in the process that much. I know they've been working through with Scott Miller and them on the process, but I do believe that the route that they're taking is the best route.
Okay, good. I value our CFO's opinion, and I just was curious as to her opinion. Thank you, Sandra.
I do see all the emails that go back and forth, and if I disagree, I let them know. But everything so far I've agreed with, and it's been right on track.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know better than to try to skirt around the CFO, I can promise you.
Really?
So if there's no, are there any other questions that myself or John might be able to answer? So that kind of brings me to my request, which would be the second step on John's list. I would request that the board approve for BF&S to advertise a request for pricing for this project and to start the process for the RFP.
Yes, so Neil, I'm not sure how well you can hear. They're done with the presentation and they're ready for motions on the Admiral only.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It'd be a request for proposals.
Yes.
If not, I will entertain motion.
I move to approve Lebanon Utilities and BFF&S to advertise for an RFP for the Admiral One-Way Storage Facility.
Second.
I think I heard motions by Tim and Jim
Yes.
to approve the Lebanon Utilities and BFF&S to advertise for RFP for Admiral One-Way Storage Facility. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.
One comment I'd make, this is going to be a very large contract for us for this water storage facility. I would suggest one of the board members participate in the selection process. It's a pretty unique process. If I reviewed it with John, and I think with this amount of money, we ought to have a board member participate. It could be anyone or somebody on maybe finance, however it works. But this is a very large contract.
That would be fantastic. In our last scoring committee for Syracuse Drive was Tony Green and Ed and myself, just so we would have, 3 different opinions. Tim, I think that'd be great, and if we want to discuss, if anybody wants to send an email afterwards, or whoever wants to be involved.
We can determine that later, because
Absolutely.
it'll take a while to bid and get it back, but I do think that it's important when you're talking roughly $2.5 million.
Oh, I would, yes, I would, I think that would be a fantastic
Great
option.
idea.
All right, looks like the next few items are information items. First one being the wastewater treatment plant capacity, it's an update.
Yes, thank you, and this is my last item, I promise. We've been talking quite a bit about the sewer collection system, and when we've been meeting with the city in the future growth meetings, progress meetings, there have been some mention of possible future lift stations. So I just wanted to kind of recap the wastewater treatment plant capacity since our construction's all done and our expansion is all finished, and then let Mr. Holden from Wessler Engineering talk just briefly about the future that we have with that facility, and just to ensure that the board understands that some of the stuff we're dealing with in the collection system is more of a conveyance issue, and once we start capturing all of that sewage, we do have the capacity, thanks to this new expansion, to take all of this water. Prior to our last plant expansion, our daily average capacity was around 3.3 million gallons a day, with a daily maximum of 8.6 million gallons a day. And thanks to our expansion that was just recently completed, we upped our daily average to 5 million gallons a day, and our daily maximum was increased to 15 million gallons a day. Our average for 2021 right now is 3 million gallons a day. So, they did a wonderful job of expanding that. And even as wet as it's been and some issues that we've had in the system, the collection system, it has not carried over, and our wastewater treatment plant is in great shape to, once we capture all of that and deal with those issues, to handle all of those issues.
Question, please.
Yes.
These capacities that you're quoting are dry day capacities? In other words, on those situations where we have saturated ground and high rains?
Well, so the capacity is the plant's capacity. The average is dry and wet days. We took all those days into.
Oh, you did?
Yes, yeah. So the average of 3 million gallons a day is from January 1 until, I think, last week while I was collecting the data. So that encompasses all of our peak days and our driest day we've had.
So when we have backups at the headworks during heavy rains, that really doesn't impact our capacity to deal with residential and industrial waste?
Correct. It does not. It does not affect that.
Okay.
Those are great questions. So the issue is that we're finding is that it's a system collections issue where we have some bottlenecks, we have some sewers that are adverse grade or undersized, and then when you take in growth and you're putting more water in that line, it's just not making it to the plant. So what we have to do, it's our responsibility to make sure we capture all of that and get it to the plant where the plant has been upsized enough to take care of all of that. So I have, like I said, Bob Holden here from Wessler. He can kind of explain what we have as far as any future growth that we might have or be able to handle, and how we're planning on that.
Yeah, Brian, quick question, or Bob probably answer this too, but you were talking about design capacity, right? We did a change to the plant where the design capacity increased.
Correct.
Okay, so, all right.
Yes.
So as Ryan said, the current capacity is a 5 MGD plant, and Aaron, to elaborate just a little bit on Ryan's explanation for you, you all are not a CSO community, so you don't get the advantage of looking at wet weather or dry weather days. They're
What is CSO?
a combined sewer overflow.
Thank you.
So you have separate sewers, so there's no wet weather or dry weather for you, it's every day for you, okay? Your current rolling 3-year average is about 2.84 MGD, so you have roughly 2.2 or million gallons of available capacity at the facility right now. And so that's what Ryan is referencing when you put in the additional lift stations, et cetera. So for future growth, you have approximately 2 million gallons of average daily flow capacity available for you. With respect to wet weather flow, Aaron, and what you're seeing, and you're back with the headworks, about 5% of the time, Lebanon Utilities is above, certainly less than 10% of the time, Lebanon Utilities is above that 5 MGD flow rate on a daily basis. So that's when you start to get in and see the I&I impacts to your system. In the last 7 years, you have not recorded a flow, an average daily flow at the facility above about 13.8 million gallons a day. So you may have an instantaneous peak that goes up a little higher than that, but that checks very well with where you are from an average daily flow. We'd expect to see a peaking factor of about 3 to 4 for most municipal facilities that are separate sanitary systems, and so your metrics are very much in line there. You do have I&I issues throughout the system, but...
We also have some inflow issues. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So as Ryan said, he's correcting the problem. With respect to the actual site itself, I know I was up and visited with Ed, and there have been some questions about what the capacity is, the ultimate capacity is for the site. Back in 2004, Bob Waples and I did a master plan for that site. And the site itself has quite a bit more capacity to grow, especially when you take into consideration the land across the street. One of the things that was done in 2005 when we did the Headworks project and put that in was the elevations for that Headworks project were all driven off that master plan in 2004. One of the things that the plant has suffered from chronically is that over the course of time, there were hydraulic issues that were never really successfully addressed throughout the plant to gravity flow through it. The last expansion, we would have seen probably a little better peak expansion capacity if some of the existing piping were just a little bigger. And so one of the things we did back then was we made an effort to try to look from forward as far as we could to make sure that didn't happen again. So the moral of the story is the 802 Lafayette Avenue site has a great deal of capacity left as far as expansion goes. One of the things that may have to happen is that there are several historic structures out at the site that may have to be demoed in the future. And past expansions, we've just kind of ignored those facilities. Future expansions, you may have to do some demolition. There may need to be, at some point in time in the future, a relocation of the collection system, and Ryan's office will move them out someplace, put some tanks in. But moral of the story is you all are very well fixed for the coming future for that site.
Can you reasonably put a year time frame on the future?
I would say 20 years.
Seriously?
Plus. Yeah.
And that's considering reasonable and expected growth in the city? Huh.
Yes.
20 years as is?
Not 20 years as is. I would say that site would be certainly the central wastewater location for Lebanon for at least the next 20 years.
Okay, and the capacity for growth is 20 years with the existing
The 2
facility?
million gallons, Aaron?
Yes.
Is purely a function of housing development or development within Lebanon.
Okay, so you're not ready to make a magic ball prediction?
I am not going to stand up and
Okay.
promise you
Well, let me-
that
let me,
facility's going to last for 20 years, because as soon as I do that, Pulte's going to build something between here and Whitestown and make me a liar.
Yeah, let me contribute here. I can't make that prediction either, but if you look at it this way, that you have 2.8 MGD as your average flow, and you have 2 MGD available, that would mean that if you're looking to get it to your rated capacity, you're looking to be able, Lebanon, getting 66% more capacity.
Yeah.
So, and plus it's expandable. And part of the reason I asked Bob to come and kind of share some of what we discussed is because every time we put in a lift station somewhere that brings more flow to the plant, the discussion may be, can the plant take it? And should we look at building another facility where the lift station is or further to the south? And plants, they cost a lot to build, and we have a lot of capacity. It's always cheaper to build a lift station than it is to build a plant. And that's going to be part of the overall wastewater study that we're looking to complete in August, I believe. So I just thought it was a worthy discussion to make sure the board was aware of that, so.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, the site on Lafayette Avenue has the advantage of being located, obviously, immediately proximate to Prairie Creek. As you go further south towards Whitestown, the availability of additional discharge locations or streams that would support that level of wastewater discharge become more limited. So that is certainly a factor.
So if the south side annexation all of a sudden develops greatly along a Waterford-type scenario, we wouldn't necessarily need another wastewater treatment plant situated near that area, that we could accommodate that development with lift stations and a collection system to our existing plant?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Really? That's,
Yeah.
in a way, that's good news. Me, anyway.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
And one more. That discussion I just had about the south side development and so forth, is that going to be part of the wastewater CIP study? Okay. Thank you.
So that's really all I had. I just wanted to kind of just go over, I hadn't really done an update after everything was kind of buttoned up at after the last expansion. It went really well. Wessler did a wonderful job. Thieneman did a great job. And we're very happy with the end product. The operators are happy. And I just wanted to kind of let everybody know, if you had any concerns as we are talking about adding a lift station or multiple lift stations, that previous management and Wessler did a wonderful job of preparing us not only for right now, but for future growth. And then that facility and that property does have more room. If we want to expand, if you need to rent me a U-Haul to work out of the back of, and we can just pull it in there in the parking lot, that's fine. If we need to expand into my office, whatever it takes, I'm willing to sacrifice. But just wanted to give everybody an update. If anybody has any questions that you might think of after this, feel free to email me and I can pass it on to.
Let me make one more comment.
Yes.
As a board member, is it useful for me to have this mindset when you come to me for a new lift station, to think in my mind, this lift station is expensive, but it's a lot less expensive than a new wastewater treatment plant? Should that be part of my thought process?
That should absolutely, yes,
Okay.
yes. And a lift station, when you talk about the permitting and a facility, a lift station being near a property compared to a wastewater treatment plant being near a property, when you take into consideration all those factors and the fact that we did just spend the money on the expansion, the lift station is the ideal means of dealing with the collection system currently that we would prefer.
Yeah, and one thing to add at the risk of getting off topic is a lift station and a force main's a lot cheaper than trying to design it with the gravity main. The gravity main's typically going to be The construction's going to be a lot more difficult, and it's going to be a lot larger, and the routing's going to be harder, because you're going to have to make the gravity flow, because, so it's,
Yes.
it's a good solution for a lot of situations in older systems.
And Mr. Smith knows my concerns and hatred for gravity, so we discussed that in our previous meeting. So yes, this is our preferred method. So if anyone else has any questions, I can answer them. If not, yes, sir.
One moment, that's right. Got 10 minutes and I'll be done.
I didn't.
Bill, can you repeat that? We didn't hear you.
Sorry, I was talking to the dog.
The dog.
Oh, okay. No problem.
That's the easiest question I'll have, so I appreciate that. Once again, I do want to thank Bob Holden and Wessler for his time in coming here and answering some questions that I had, and that I know that Ed had, and I'm sure maybe some ratepayers may have had. So I appreciate his time in all this and his help in all this.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
All right, another information item. Does anybody else have anything on the wastewater treatment plant capacity?
Yeah, Neil, we're complete on that item. I think we're ready for item 9 with the key accounts update. Dustin Shirley's coming to the.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. So the key accounts updates, we're going to go over the e-reliability study that the American Public Power Association does. They focus on the distribution system nationally, and then they can kind of customize it to more of our utility, and then we can analyze that data and help us in ways of bettering our system. Okay. Danny, you can go another one. This study basically just was from 2020. This is just a quick note of the size of our utility. We have roughly 9,000 electric meters. So we are in class 4 and we're in region 2, which puts us with Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin. Okay. So the first slide here, and before I get into too much, kind of go over, there's one slide that's going to stand out pretty good. I think the data was entered wrong. I think, have been trying to look into the problem. We've been finding that the staff hours total was added in rather than the duration of the outage itself. I can explain a little more when we get in there, but this first one, it's actually the System Average Interruption Duration Index, and that's defined as the average interruption duration in minutes for customers served by the utility during a specific time frame. So you can see in utilities that are our size, the average is 90 minutes. Ours is 43 minutes. And the MEs is major events.
Major events.
And then unscheduled outages and scheduled outages. So I think our utility is doing very well in this one. The next one is the System Average Interruption Frequency Index, which is defined as the average number of instances a customer on the utility system will experience an interruption during a specific period. Ours was 0.13. The average for a customer or a utility in our size class was 0.77. So this is another one that shows.
What's the definition of a major event?
That's not something I would assume that it is the length of duration of outage. I don't know what the threshold for that is.
I think a major event is, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, that's like if you have something like an act of God, like a big storm. If we were on the coast, it was a hurricane, or we had like a big windstorm, like I think we had a year or so ago.
Okay, so this is the slide I was talking about. The Customer Average Interruption Duration Index, which is defined as the average duration in minutes of an interruption experienced by customers during a specific time frame. For whatever reasons, the data showed that we had 322 minutes in interruptions experienced by a customer during each time. The average for our customer size class is 116 minutes. So if Danny, you go to the next slide, I actually did a study for my schooling that was comparing us to the national average of co-ops, IOUs like Duke Energy, and municipals as well. Ours, I think I used the first 40 or 50 outages of the year, and that had us closer to the 80-minute mark, where the national average is roughly about 60. So we've been working on tracking our man hours better, turning in our forms. I think that will show next year in this e-reliability study that those numbers were wrong. And another thing, I think that if those...
I'm sorry, Dustin. I'm sometimes slow to understand. What does employee reporting of hours have to do with the number of minutes it takes to overcome an outage?
I think it's just us being more inclined to keep track of things more. I don't think, even if you go over the staff hours compared to the duration of the outage is still not going to be anywhere remotely near that.
Yeah, let me interrupt. I think what it is when we tabulate our outage, we look at the timesheets for when the people were out and when they came back. And I think if I understood it right, I think with the Katie statistic, we looked at if there was 5 people out on an outage, we added the 5 people together instead of just looking at, so if 5 people were up for 5 hours, it should have been 5 hours duration, but we had 25. So that's reasonable to me, and we're looking into it. It doesn't make sense to me that all of our statistics are great, except for that one. So we think that there's a problem with how something was done. And since I already interrupted Dustin, I need to kind of shout him out that when he said his schooling, it's not just like he's not just doing arithmetic. He's getting his master's in business administration because he's a up and comer and wants to better himself. So a shout out to Dustin there. So
thanks. And like I was saying, I think if that data was accurate, it would increase the data levels on all the other slides and the system interruptions and everything. Okay, Danny. So the average service availability index is a measure of the average availability of sub-transmission and distribution systems that serve customers. Ours is 99.9918, and again, for the average size of the utility like us is 99.9828. Just some sustained outage causes for Lebanon Utilities. These are our top 5, and again, a sustained outage is classified as an outage that lasts longer than 5 minutes. First one is worn out equipment, then repairs, squirrel, equipment damage, and human accident.
Is worn out equipment and repairs sort of the same thing, or?
Yeah, I don't know if the repairs is more of a scheduled outage to where worn out equipment might cause the outage.
Right.
Okay.
Can I add something there? Is that we do have outages sometimes to a squirrel. Our lines are outside. It's a very common cause. Often it's number 1.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is, we can't guarantee a completely uninterrupted power supply. If a squirrel gets in to something and the power transfers and we have a blink, it's going to happen in a public power supply. And a lot of our vendors that, like I think Witham Hospital is an example, they have systems where they can't have they can't have an interruption, so they have something called a UPS or an uninterruptible power supply. Yeah. And there's all sorts of different technology if they have something that's really critical for that they can do.
Yeah, we worked pretty closely with them on when they were developing that and getting it installed. And I have a pretty good relationship with the maintenance man there, and he said if the circuit goes out, lights blink, they don't notice it. So, okay. And this is the sustained outages, top 5 causes for the region, and like Ed said, squirrel is number 1, and then trees.
Yeah, I'd like to interject here. Tree did not show up on our previous slide. And,
right.
We spend a nice amount of money every month for our tree service contractor.
Yep.
I get the impression they must be doing a pretty darn good job because that tree doesn't show up on our top 5 causes. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, I think if we probably went back a couple years and looked at this before we had the tree trimmers, I'd say that would be a pretty big cause. Even with them, and they do a really good job. When we had all that snow, the leaves were on the trees, but that snow came on, and it's just caused the extra weight on the branches, stuff like that. So we did see some, but I think as soon as that snow melted, they were still plenty of clearance in the line, so. Yeah. Okay, and then these are momentary outage causes. Top 5 for the region is equipment, failure of greater transmission, wildlife, squirrel, and unknown. And please note that the ability to track momentary outages can be difficult or unavailable in some systems, but due to the hazard they pose for certain electrical equipment on the inside of our customers' buildings, it's important to track this and analyze it. So we do not track these because we do, but we don't. We track them on our weekly substation checks. We can check the events on the circuit breakers, but just because it's an event, the event can show up and it could cause the lights to blink, but it doesn't necessarily relay the breaker. So it's very hard to find the cause of that event. So that's why we don't have a slide for our top 5 causes. Okay. Any questions?
All right, well, thanks, Dustin. Are you staying up for the next item,
Yep.
too?
I think we need more squirrel hunters.
Okay, Neil, Dustin's at the podium for the next item, too, for the UN update.
Okay, that's good, thanks.
Okay, so right now, as of yesterday, Windhoven Pipeline said that they should be done with their part of the construction by the end of the week. I know on the west side of Ulen, along the golf course, they told me they had one 300-foot bore left to do, and then set the transformer pads and everything for us. And then on the east side, that is along Ulen Drive and Elm Swamp area, they are getting really close to being done on that as well. Our crew, we had one crew complete our construction on the middle part of Ulen, and kudos to them, that took them 2.5 days to get that section ready. We have actually talked to the electricians that are going to be doing the work for the customers, and kind of told them that if they wanted to get started, that middle section is completed, ready to go. I think reasonably, if they get done this week, depending on weather, I think in 2 weeks we should be able to have our section done. So,
Remind me what our section is again.
so there's basically transformers going all the way around Ulen on the east side. So they are responsible for boring in the interduct, which is what our wire will pull into. And they are going to set the transformer pads, which is what the underground transformers set on. And then they set the secondary pedestals, which is what the house services and the secondary wire go into. So that is all set. And then our guys have to pull all the wire in, make all the terminations, which is basically how to connect the wire into the transformer to give it power.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And yeah, I just think kudos to the crews, because the only snags that we've had is just on the 4-inch interduct that's been going in along Ulen Drive. They had to put some splices in it, and just the natural curve of that 4-inch interduct, I think, has caused a problem for us to pull our wire in. But Windhoven's been good. They've been there and they've helped. We've got it, all the 3-phase sections pulled in today, actually. So I think we're on pace and should be completed hopefully within the next 2-3 weeks.
And so once that's done, the Ulen households will then have to use their contractor to connect each individual house to the system, is that correct?
Yeah. So the old system, which is in the front of all the properties, will still be energized. And I believe they have 90 days from the completion of our new system to get everything transferred into the new stuff. So I think that's roughly September.
Let's see, Ed, do we anticipate any delays from the Ulen private residence connection?
We had a conference call on Zoom with Ulen, and everything seems to be going smooth. Dustin and Jeff Greeno met with I think, Alcorn, their selected subcontractor, last Friday, and everything seems to be going smooth. But that said, like Bob, I don't have Bob Holden's crystal ball either. There could be weather delays, there could be MEs, or, there's events that could happen. So we don't anticipate anything, but we are communicating regularly and trying to keep up with everything as best as we can. So.
And so after those final connections are made, then we'll switch from the front yard system to the backyard system?
Yes, that's
okay.
correct. Any other questions about Yulin?
Is that everything for you, Dylan?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Dustin, and for the update.
Thank you.
Next item is approval of the claim payroll transfers. Action item, everyone have a chance to review the claims? Any questions or discussion of the claims? If not, I entertain motion.
I move to approve the claims payroll transfers dated May 5th, 2021, in the amount of $1,602,630.42 for claims and payroll, and $7,990,49.26 for transfers.
Second.
Daniel, can you tell me who made those motions?
Jim Urban made the motion and Aaron Smith seconded.
All right, motion by Tim, second by Aaron to approve the claims, the payroll and transfers. Any other questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we got, next item will be any other business that may come before the board. Ed, do we have anything tonight?
I don't have any more business to come before the board.
All right, any other board members have anything they want to bring up, or any other public comment?
No, we have no public left, and nobody has a comment, it seems.
All right, there's nothing else tonight. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 19th at 5 p.m. Anything else before we adjourn? Now, I entertain a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion from Aaron and a second from Tim to adjourn, I believe.
Correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. Appreciate all the help for us being on the phone here. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you later.